Immediate President of the Institute, Vice President, Board of Past Presidents, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are here now to talk about the branch of the main theme, and the branch is path to overcoming security and infrastructural challenges in Nigeria. And we have a lead paper presenter, my good friend, Dr. Mohammed Gore, FCA, and I think it was last year, he was so excited about what was happening to the transmission company of Nigeria. He gathered a number of us here one evening and took us to his office. He said, we will want to make a presentation to us, and it will last no more than 30 minutes. We were there for 3 hours, and we never noticed that we had spent so much time. It was such an exciting experience. I'm so happy that we're having him here again today as the lead presenter. So the excitement he brought to us a year ago, he will bring it to all of us. And when it's done, we have here the discussants. And you too will be the discussants because you will have an opportunity of speaking. Representing, we have here the governor of Bauchi State, Professor Babagana Umaru. Borno State, not Bauchi. Oh, yes, because I went to Bauchi State last week. Yes, Borno State. And we're glad to have I've not been told now, so I've known to make the mistakes. So please introduce yourself by telling us your name.
My name is Dr. Babagana Wakil MNI. I am the Chief of Staff to His Excellency.
You've heard from the horse's mouth. He's not a horse, but he has the horse's mouth. Thank you very much. On that note, I will now go straight to the point, because I'm not an expert in this field. So I'll call on my brother, Dr. Mohammed, and I'll go on there and do what you're good at doing. Thank you.
The President of ICAN, the Chairman of this occasion, who happened to be my advisor actually. Before I start with the existing protocol, let me recognize Senator Bukule, because when I was appointed as MD CEO of Transmission Company of Nigeria, there are 3 Nigerians that I went to seek their blessing, whether I should take up the job. And Senator Bukule is one of the 3 people that I met there, and he encouraged me to take up that job. So let me start on the existing protocol, and then let me move on with the presentation. The topic I'm supposed to talk about is on path to overcoming security and infrastructural challenges in Nigeria. Let me start by discussing what is infrastructure. Infrastructure can be broadly described as physical infrastructure, that's how we know it. But it also includes soft infrastructure like human capital and health services, including security. Physical infrastructure clearly includes the public utilities, the public works, and transport sector. Human security also include personal security, health security, food security, and many others. But clearly, poor people are most vulnerable in terms of all forms of security indices. And what is security? Security is the freedom from threat or danger or anxiety. And clearly, human development and human security are mutually reinforcing. This is because by enhancing people's capability, and that is through infrastructure, it will lead to improving the people's security. Clearly also, infrastructure provides the context in which people can engage in their choices, can enlarge their choices. But if you look at all our effort at putting infrastructure in Nigeria, you look at planning has always been a problem. And that is why when we don't have adequate planning, what do you have? You build power plants without necessary gas infrastructure. Or we have built seaports, like what is happening in the Apapa of right now, without adequate road to evacuate or railway to evacuate for evacuation. Or we build hospitals without imaging machines, or we have imaging machines without technicians to maintain them. There are several attempts that we have done in this country to build infrastructure. But if you look at them, most of them are not sustainable. We have done the Investec Housing Estate, we have done Petroleum Trust Funds, National Integrated Power Project, National Grain Reserve. All of them, if you check them, they are not sustainable. And the main reason why they are not sustainable is lack of adequate planning. And that is why we embark on some infrastructure reforms. In our effort to embark on infrastructure reforms to provide sustainable infrastructure in Nigeria, I can know of only one that you can say is very successful. That is the telecommunication reform. But other ones that we embark on, like the urban water sector reform, where we have sunk as a nation in the last 10 years about $3 billion. You can't call it sustainable because there is no part of Nigeria that you can say have sustainable water supply. Our effort also in transport reform, up to now, we are not yet there. If you look at our GDP and our revenue earnings, clearly there is a structural problem in our economy. When you have the GDP not bringing much income, such economy is actually supposed to embark on reforms that will allow private sector to take off much of the responsibility that the public sector is supposed to do. And that is why we embark on some of these reforms. Unfortunately, most of these reforms have not been done very well. Now, clearly, I've talked about infrastructure, but clearly, all this infrastructure we talk about, the most important infrastructure is actually power. This is because even the UN SDG classifies infrastructure as number 7. It classified all other infrastructure as number 9, but power was classified as number 7. This is because power is the driver of modern technology. And based on its demand and application and its linkages and other infrastructure depends on them. Power stands out as the most important infrastructure. And I want to tell you a story. When His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari, President Olusegun Obasanjo came to power in 1999, he actually sought the advice of the former president of Singapore. And he was advised that instead of focusing on so many infrastructure, let's focus on one. He clearly said that in Africa we focus on many things at the same time. At the end, we don't achieve any. So it's better to focus on one, and that is power, which he told him to focus on. And that is what informed the appointment of one of his close friends as the Minister of Power, and also the creation of National Integrated Power Project, and also the power sector reform. But clearly, we made a lot of mistakes in terms of planning and execution. And to underscore the importance of power, next flash please. To underscore the importance of power, if you look at, these are classification of countries with their per capita income of power. You can clearly see countries that have high per capita income on power are those countries that are actually doing well in terms of GDP, that is per capita income. So it means that if we fix electricity, we are likely going to fix all our problems, meaning our GDP is supposed to move forward. And even if you come to Nigeria now, I can clearly link to you places that have inadequate electricity are the places where you have significant level of insecurity. If you look at places like Borno, Yobe State, these are the places that have the lowest level of power consumption in Nigeria. The same thing place like Zamfara and part of South. So clearly, if we fix electricity, we are likely going to fix our security. And actually, if you look at most of our people that are crossing the border to go to Europe, the difference between the Europe and this side is only power, where you have heaven on that side and hell on this side. The reason is because we don't have electricity on this side. And that is why power is very important in our life. So we embark on the power sector reform, and the intention is to create a sustainable electricity industry which can pay itself. And that is how we come up with the Power Sector Reform Act of 2005, which unbundles the former vertically integrated power utility called PSN into 18 companies. The 11 distribution companies were privatized. 6 generation companies were also privatized, while transmission company was held in government hands, but it was held on the ground that it will be managed as a private sector entity. And that explained the reason why a management contractor was hired to manage TCN, because the organization is supposed to run like a private sector. So Manitoba Hydro was hired to manage TCN for a period of 3 years, with the possibility of extension of one year twice. Unfortunately, after managing the organization for 4 years, the government had the option of extending it by another 1 year, but it did not extend it because the belief is that Manitoba has not done well. And I was called from the African Development Bank to come and manage TCN for a period of 1 year, so that I can put a management structure that works. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you here is that for the 4 years that Manitoba managed TCN, Nigeria officially paid $32 million for management of TCN. And for these 4 years, there was no single audit of the organization for the 4 years. And there was no single investment that was raised for these 4 years. And before I moved to African Development Bank, actually, I was part of the people that did the reform of the power sector. And we are the one that worked on preparing transmission for a role that you play under the power sector reform. One of the studies we did in 2005 to prepare TCN for the role in the power sector reform is what we call change management consultancy, which we did in 2005, which was done by a company called Red Electrica in conjunction with Accenture. Red Electrica is a utility in Spain. Now, that change management consultancy look at the staffing and the organizational structure of TCN and come up with the following findings. 3 key findings. One of the findings was that TCN was top-heavy, meaning it has too many management compared to the company of its size. The other finding was that TCN had too many non-technical staff, meaning the line function officers are less than the supporting staff. And lastly, transmission has an aging workforce. I can clearly tell you all those 3 findings was not addressed by Manitoba Hydro. But the worst of it is that the top-heavy structure of TCN at that time, when we did the study in 2005, shows that TCN had 10 general managers at that time with 2 executive directors and 11 assistant general managers. But it will interest you, when I was asked to come and put a structure for TCN, Manitoba has bloated the 10 general managers to 46 general managers and the 11 assistant general managers to 134. So that was the assignment I was given to come and manage. And to be honest with you, it took me 6 months to take over that job and to see the pushing of people like Senator Bukule to push me before I accepted the job. because I didn't believe that we'll be able to do anything in that kind of structure. But when we came in, we have to face the challenge. And one of the big challenges that we have was the issue of overcoming right of way. So we came up with a strategy on engaging state government, which we worked together with Senator Ibukule actually to do the structuring of the project of Lagos Open Transmission Project. We also came up with what they call 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan, which we hired Mrs. Fichtner of Germany to do that plan. This 20-year least cost expansion plan look at our expansion of our transmission at the 330, existing 330, at 500 and at 750, which we call super grid. And this is the first time we did this kind of study in the history of Nigeria. It look at all the requirements of the distribution companies and all the point load customers and come up with how transmission should be expanded in the next 20 years. On the basis of this 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan, we came up with a transmission rehabilitation and expansion program. Because at that time, transmission was the worst in the power value chain. It was the least in the power value chain. So everybody can explain in his lack of performance with transmission. So we have to come with 20-year with the Nigeria Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program. That program is the 4-year out of the 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan. And we need to raise money to do that. Now, this transmission expansion plan has the following development objective: to rehabilitate, stabilize, and provide necessary flexibility and redundancy and expand the grid to 20,000 megawatts. There was a study that was conducted by Manitoba that shows that we need about 8 billion to expand the grid to 20,000. But I can stay in front of you as a chartered accountant and tell you that we don't need up to that amount. We have clearly seen that what we need is less than 2 billion to expand the grid to 20,000 megawatts. Now we have to look for source of funding to expand the grid because we want to put N-1 across the country. And what is N-1? N-1 means that if you have a requirement for 60 MVA in a place, you have to put 60 times 2. And if you have to build a line, you cannot build a radial line, but you have to build it in loop, which means we have to work towards closing the loop across the country. So we need to raise finance. And we have to approach donors to do this. But clearly, let me go back to the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program. It has 4 important milestones. Before now, we have always been focusing on what? Expansion the grid. We have never taken time to look at other soft aspects, that is the quality of power. But this time around, under the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program, we are also looking at what? The quality of power. And that is why we look at the frequency control. It will interest you to know that electricity is not like water, so you cannot store it. So whatever you generate will only be equal to what you are demanded. So if you have 20 kVA generator in your house, for example, if the wire from your house to the generator is also 20 kVA capacity, if the load inside your house is only 5 kVA, if you own the generator, it will generate only 5 kVA. Now, if you increase the load in your house by owning AC and the rest of them, and it increases to 10 kVA, automatically the generator will move to 10 kVA. If you increase the load to 21 kVA, what will happen? The generator will stop working. In a conventional energy grid side, we say the system has what? Collapsed. So at any point in time, demand and supply must equal. Now, before now, we manage demand and supply through telephone. If the distribution company drop load, what happens is that we call the generators to drop load. Drop one generator, stop remove one generator, or Delta, remove one generator, or ICAN-ngr, remove one generator. But actually the grid code provided automatic way of managing the demand and supply. And what is it? Every generator is supposed to provide what they call free governor. And that free governor is supposed to make the generators to reduce supply automatically as the distribution companies are reducing supply. So we enforced that grid code in 2017 after fighting with the generators, and we achieved a frequency control of 49.5 and 50.5 Hz. And I can tell you that has not been achieved in the history of the country at that time for over 20 years. After 1 year, precisely in November 2018, we enforced high level of frequency control by forcing generators that are not on the frequency mode to be on the frequency mode. And from December 23rd, 2018 to May 5, 2019, we achieved frequency control at the NAC standard of 49.75 and 50.25 Hz for 85% of time, and at the WAP standard for 66% of the time. To the best of our knowledge, this is the best frequency control the nation has ever achieved. And also, we are at the same standard with Ghana. We also force the generators to the extent that as at today, only one generator that half of their generation plants that are not on frequency mode. All generators in Nigeria are on free governor. But from May 6 to date, we are struggling to achieve 30% of what we achieved from December 23rd to May 5. Why? Because all the distribution network are very weak. No investment in the distribution network. So when it rains, the distribution network are dropping loads, and matching demand and supply becomes a big problem. And this is clearly, even Abuja that is built as a modern city, once it rains, in 10 minutes you discover that the whole of Abuja, even the city center, will be about 90% without supply. And that is a big problem, and that's why we are finding it difficult. And not only that, we start having problem with our terminal equipment, because the rate of which they will drop load because of rain is so bad that we cannot match the demand, and our terminal equipment like writing and resources will start catching fire. And that is what we are managing. And that is why we wrote to government and said the discourse have to be capitalized. But I will come to that. Now, the next thing we need to have a functional grid, and as part of the transmission rehabilitation and expansion program, is that we need to have a spinning reserve. Now, all modern grid must have 10% of their generation on spinning reserve. And what is a spinning reserve? Spinning reserve is instability that can take place that cannot be taken care of by frequency control. Which means if there's a generator that goes out without planned, that means it can cause instability in the sector. It can cause the grid to collapse. So the spinning reserve is putting an online generation, like putting motor only a car without putting gear for the motor to start working. Only for it to start if there's need for it to zoom up. That is what a spinning reserve. So it's an auxiliary service that has to be paid for. Unfortunately, when we came, the spinning reserve is either 0 or 40, and until today, it's either 0 or 40. We did a competitive procurement of spinning reserve, which was also the first time that we did this kind of thing in Nigeria, and we got 260 megawatt of spinning reserve. I told you, spinning reserve with average generation of about 4,000 megawatt, the spinning reserve is supposed to be what? It's supposed to be 400. But when we advertise, we can only get 260, because spinning reserve is not every generator that can provide it. There are certain level of speed that the generator has to have to provide it. We have forwarded to NAC since that time, that is December 2018. Up to today, we are waiting for them to approve it. Even yesterday, this is what we discussed with them in Lagos. Now, the next thing we need to have a functional grid, a modern grid, is that we need to have what they call functional SCADA. SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition. You know, I told you that spinning reserve is supposed to take care of instability that may happen. For example, if a generator goes out without planned outage, or a line goes out without, a transmission line goes out without planned outage. But are they supposed to go out without planned outage? No. So if a generator goes out without planned outage, that generator is supposed to be penalized according to the grid code. They were supposed to pay penalty. Every generator that want to maintain their generator, they are supposed to get what they call outage. But for you to penalize the generator, you have to have what? A register of event. You have to have a register that will show at this particular time this generator went out with credible evidence that will show that. Unfortunately, we don't have a functional SCADA. Unfortunately, again, we have attempted to have a functional SCADA in Nigeria 3 times, and 3 times we are not successful. So one of the things we did when we came in 2017 is to set up a committee to find out, and the TR of that committee was that what is the reason why 3 times we attempted to have a functional SCADA and we failed. And the findings of that committee was that we have communication problem. That's communication backbone is not adequate. We also have deficiencies in our control rooms. Even staffing, some of the staff have been polarized among, between 2 parties. And several other few things that we need to put in place. That informed the reason why we canceled the fiber optic concession agreement that was given to 2 companies. Those 2 companies were given the concession agreement in 2005. Each one of them is supposed to pay $40 million. One paid $3.5 million. The other one paid $2 million. And the concession was a period of 15 years. And they have run the asset for 12 years. So when we came in, we told them they have to pay the concession fee. They didn't pay. Secondly, the 2 companies are supposed to invest in the network, build fibers that goes out and fix it on top of our line, because fiber has a lifespan. So those that get spoiled, they are supposed to fix it. The 2 companies have not invested in the network as they are supposed to be. They are supposed to pay 2.5% as a royalty. They paid nothing. And that's the reason why, after writing them severally, we decided to cancel the contract. I can tell you it was the biggest nightmare I have as the MD of TCN. Even people who are supposed to support us are the people that were jailing us for that reason. But the main reason that we stayed on this job is because we have the support of key people, and I've mentioned one of them here. And secondly also, this country will never move if we don't fix our electricity. And that's why we stayed, the course. Now, the concession agreement provided for arbitration. Those people went to arbitration and we followed them. And they withdrew from arbitration and they went to court. And we are in court with them. We have a good case. We don't think we are going to lose. So we embarked on fixing the infrastructure. And we have identified areas where the weakest link in terms of communication backbone. Some of them, we are going to fix them under the Transmission Rehabilitation Expansion Program, but some of them, we are not going to touch them under the program. So those ones, we advertise them, we have finished the procurement, and is with BPP for no objection. Those locations are Ikeja West to Edwin, Aja to Alagbon, Ajakuta to Benin, and Jos to Gombe. The contract for that will be signed, and any time from now, the contractor will start putting the fiber optic on the OPGW on the network. The next thing we did was to do the scoping of the SCADA. And we employed Mrs. EDF of France. They did the scoping. But after doing the scoping, we realized that all the 3 contracts that were awarded in the past that failed were won by one company. So we decided to do a SCADA conference, under which we brought all the original equipment manufacturers and we gave them the scoping report. Why did we do that? We do that because we believe that maybe the scoping that we have done in the past were done to meet the specification of one contractor, and that's why only one contractor was winning. We did that conference last year in Abuja here, and after the end of the conference, it became very clear that even the way we are going with the SCADA, we may not get it right. So we embark on certain other things. One of them is the training of our staff. We realize that we have to train our staff to the extent that they have to start writing algorithm. They have to start asking questions. And that is the reason why up to now we have not embarked on the SCADA procurement, because we are training our staff. Part of what we are doing under the transmission rehabilitation and expansion program also is fixing the control room. So all the control room deficiencies are being fixed. And also, this one will not work. And also, we are also trying to procure the national control room, that is the National Control Center. It will interest you to know that after more than paying rent for more than 50 years, we realized that where the National Control Center is actually our own, and we have been paying rent on that place. Now the next thing we need to do is we have to have critical investment in line and substation. And what does that mean? We have to put the redundancy, and we need to raise money. Unfortunately, what we are getting before we start enforcing the market rule 3 months ago was less than 30% of our invoice. So we approached donors. Donors said TCN was not audited, so we have to audit TCN. Then also they said TCN has no structure for implementing projects. So we have to put in structure that will give confidence to the donors. And that's how we are able to realize $1.661 billion in investment in TCN from several donors, which I'm going to mention to you. But we realize also there are several containers that we abandoned in the port. In the past, 800 containers that were stranded. I spent 6 months in TCN, I could not remove a single container. Eventually, we come with a strategy, and I can clearly tell you, as at last week, we have removed 775 out of the 800 containers that were stranded in the port. And we empower TCN engineers to install those equipment across the country. And I can tell you with that, we are able to install more than 40 power transformers across the country in less than 2 years. And that is what expands the grid from 5,000 that we made to 8,100 as at December 2018 when we did the last simulation. That's what we did. Now, the next thing we did was also to come up with a strategy on how to deal with non-performing contractors. There are two types. There are those that are not ready to fight us. There are those that are willing to fight. Those that are not willing to fight us, we tell TCN engineers, complete the job. We pay them, including the work we did, and we say bye-bye. That's how we completed Kukwaba here in Abuja, for example. There are some of them that don't want, the TCN is a farm, so they want to continue to collect money from TCN. Such contractors who are supposed to complete such job maybe for 2 years have lingered for 10 years. Such contractor will forcefully take over the contract and will complete it. And I can also tell you clearly, since I came to TCN to date, 2.5 years, there's no time we lost any case. Why? Because when we are cancelling such contract, we don't say we have cancelled. We say this contract has lapsed, and we are not willing to extend it. So when you go to court, you have to prove that that contract exists, and it does not exist. That is how we completed, for example, Damatru. Damatru, the contract was awarded in 2006 with a completion period of 2 years. That contract lingered on with a value of $10.5 million and 406. When we call the contractor to complete the job, the contractor insists that we have to pay her $823 million plus $4.4 million in addition. Every discussion they refused. We forcefully took over and we completed the job with $125 million, and the place has been energized and completed. And that is how we did in several places across the country. So clearly, I told you that we raised $1.661 billion for investment in TCN. This includes $486 million from the World Bank, which is putting redundancy on the existing substations. This is not looking at greenfield, it's looking at the existing substations. And it's putting redundancy across the country, and it's looking the whole of the country, it's not one place. If I can give you an example, in Lagos, this project will put 100% of the existing capacity in Alago, 100% of the existing capacity in Lekki, and will rehabilitate all the GI substations in Lagos, including Akoka, Amuodofi, Itire, all of them. It will rehabilitate them. If I tell you about Port Harcourt, this project will put 100% in Port Harcourt town of the existing capacity and 100% in Port Harcourt city substation. That is how all over the country this project will do. As at now, this project in terms of procurement, we are about 80% completed because we started with advanced procurement, which for the first time also we are doing advanced procurement in Nigeria. Because it takes a long time to prepare a donor-funded project, and it takes a long time to do the procurement. But the procurement and the preparation can also take place peri passu, and that's what we did. The next project is what we call Lagos Ogun Transmission Project, which we work with Senator Ibukule. That project is prepared, completed. What is remaining is that we need to do the final appraisal with JICA. It's $238 million, and it's putting power in the heart of the industrialization of Nigeria. Most of the industries in Nigeria are located between Lagos and Ogun, and this project will put 4 330 kV substations between Ogun and Lagos. For information, this is the first time in the history of Nigeria that we take a decision to put more than 1 330 kV substation in one location. And those locations are Ogijo, Aribajo, behind Mountain on Fire, and at New Abara. It will also put 132 kV substation in Badagry and behind Regime. Now, the next project that this project will support is the Abuja Wheeling Scheme. This one is putting 5 new substations in Abuja. Currently, Abuja has 7 substations. This project is putting 5 new substations in Abuja, and it's bringing new supply route from Lafia to Abuja, making Abuja N-2, meaning if we do that, if 2 lines goes out of Abuja, 330 kV line, Abuja will still get supply. That's what it means. This project has been, we have awarded the contract actually, and it's under implementation. The next project is what we call Northern Corridor, which is $300 million, which is putting 3 key 330 kV lines, and those lines are double cycle line from Kaenji to Birnin-Kebbi to Sokoto. Also, we'll take one of the 330 double single cycle line between Shiroro and Kaduna and build it into a quad line. And also, it will build a line between Katsina, Daura, Gwiwa, Jogana, Hura. That line is actually being supported by European Union. It's giving us a grant of 25 million euro for building that line. Grant is a free money to Nigeria, because that line will evacuate the solar IPP in Gwiwa, which is being planned in the like of Marrakesh in Morocco. The next project is what we call Transmission Expansion Program, which is supported by the African Development Bank. That project will put 3 330 kV lines across the network. And those lines are the Alauji Uweri Onitsha line. For information, Alauji Uweri Onitsha line was awarded under NIPP to a Nigerian company. We have realized that the LC has been funded 100%, but there's no way that project can be realized. So we are reconstructing that line with the funding from the African Development Bank. The next line that this project will finance is Delta Benin and Kaduna Kano. If you check, you will see that about 1 month ago, that project has been advertised, which means the procurement is on. And the appraisal has been carried out. It will go to the Board of African Development Bank in November this year. The next project is the closing the NOTCO. That is the small circuit between Birnin-Kebbi and the border between Nigeria and Niger. This project will supply 4 countries between Nigeria, Burkina Faso, connect 4 countries, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and Benin. Our own aspect is only $27 million. Now, all these things that we are doing in transmission, only less than 20 customers are connected directly to the transmission. Only less than 20 customers. All the rest of the customers are connected through distribution. Now, what did we do wrong? I can clearly tell you that what we did in 2012, our privatization, there's no model in the world like that. There's no model. So what do I mean? It means we did the right thing wrongly. That's what we did. Now, how did we did it wrongly? When we want to privatize a distribution company, the first thing you are supposed to do is to determine the aggregate technical and commercial loss in that franchise. Because that will determine the performance of that company. Unfortunately, we didn't determine the aggregate technical and commercial loss before we put up the privatization in 2012. So we did all the roadshow that shows that that's not the right thing to do, and international investors will not come. But what did we do? We ignore it and we reduce the qualification criteria so that UG Mohammed & Co. can buy the companies. And that is how we sold the companies to UG Mohammed & Co. After selling the company to UG Mohammed & Co., UG Mohammed & Co. cannot raise long-term investment. So what did we do? Most Nigerian banks came to them and paid and gave them the money which they used to pay the asset. Those money are short-term in nature. No Nigerian banks can raise long-term finance. Most of those funds cannot be more than 7 years. And this is not these are not ideal for this kind of investment. And that is how we have now liquidity crisis. So what can we do? The only thing we can do is to recapitalize the discourse. And that's why we wrote the government to recapitalize the discourse. To underscore this position that I'm telling you, the current network that we have with the discourse, we have 827 interfaces with the discourse. That is our point of connection. Out of these 837 interfaces, only 421 have full protection on the side of discourse. For information, electricity is about protection. It's about protection. If you go to your house now, you will see that you have cutout, you have MCB, you have all those ELCB. These are to protect every fault inside your house so that it doesn't go to the source. Now, in this case, we have distribution network that have no protection. Out of this, 139 has a mixed breed of 33 kV, feeding on 33 kV through our breakers, and 415. 177 interfaces have no protection at all. It's our 33 kV that's providing the protection. If you go to Europe or America, you will see a 33 kV breaker that has not tripped even once for 10 years. Here, you will see a 33 kV breaker that will trip 10 times in a day. Therefore, even the investment in TCN is not sustainable if we don't have investment in distribution. And that is why, sir, when we commissioned the substation in Abeokuta recently, I told them clearly that this is a stranded asset because we have completed the project 1 year ago, sir. And yet we have commissioned, there is no network to take the supply to anybody's house. So we need to capitalize the distribution companies. And that is what we need to do. But because this is not happening, we as transmission, we have to look at the rule, and we decided to enforce our right under the market rule. If you read recently, you will see so many write-up going on between us and some of the discourse. What I want to tell you is that in enforcing the market rule, we study it and we make sure that we are right. And all those discourse that even those that make noise, including Kano, as of today, they have paid all the money we told them to pay 100%. What does that mean? That means from the time we start enforcing our rights, we have been collecting our money from the discourse 100%. So our average revenue that used to be 3.5 now, before now, is now about 9 billion. And that's how we continue. Now, what I want to tell you is that transmission is a sustainable business. If you look at all the discourse collectively, they are owing TCN 270 billion as we speak. So if they are owing this TCN 270 billion as we speak, that means in 5 years, we are able to have 270 billion. Our tariff is the lowest in the market. In fact, even NAC agreed that our tariff was not right. In 2007, what we agreed with NAC is that our tariff is supposed to be 6 naira 60 kobo. Yet we are getting 3 naira 20 kobo, and we have outstanding of 270. So what I clearly want to tell you is that the loan we are not taking loan for Nigerians to come and pay. TCN will pay its loan. We are not taking loan for Nigeria to come and pay. And that's why we have also come up with an innovative way of doing things. One of the things we did was to appoint one of our members, Mr. Obu, as the General Manager, Business Development, and start exploiting actions that can give us more revenue. And that's why, if you look at recently, we advertised to connect Eco Atlantic. Eco Atlantic will give TCN sustainable revenue so that we can even do many things more than what we are doing now. Mr. Obu, who was our member, he picked up just recently a tower that we have in Shirodo, where the three GSM companies have been using, and they've been paying TCN only 300 naira, 300,000 per annum. Mr. Obu has jacked up that payment. Each one of them is paying us 3 million per annum now. So we are actually working to see into a sustainable company that will pay its bills. I will have been talking here, you know, Oga Ijewere said that if I continue to talk here, I will not stop. And I must commend him actually, because I was not talking about what we are doing in transmission until I met him last year, where when I did presentation to him, and that's why I will urge members that are young, you have to befriend people who are older than you, so that when the mistake they make, you don't make that kind of mistake. Emmanuel Ajori advised me last year when I spoke with him that, look, Yuji, all this that you are doing is unsustainable if people don't know what you are doing. He said it's like lighting a candle and you put it under the table. The fire will quench. And that explains the reason why you saw me in Network Live and every place for her. It was the advice that I got from Oga Emmanuel Ijewere. But my time has finished, but let me talk to some of my colleagues, especially those that are in the public sector. If you are in the public sector, and I can also tell ICAN, we cannot neglect the public sector, because the public sector put the policy that drive the private sector. So if we leave wrong people to drive the public sector, the same way will continue to suffer and the nation will not go anywhere. So as somebody who grew up in the public sector, clearly I grew up in the public sector because I worked in Nigerian government for 17.5 years in the power sector before I moved to the African Development Bank. And African Development Bank gave me a job because they believe that I'm good. And I developed my capacity in the public sector. So one of the things I will advise my colleagues that are in the public sector, because there's no money in the public sector. In the public sector, if you are employed in the Nigerian public sector, you are kept in poverty for 30 years. That is true. You are kept in poverty for 30 years. Until after maybe 5 years for you to go, they give you everything, including what you don't need. That is how it is. So how do you navigate this kind of environment? What I would suggest to you is that, first of all, you have to be focused. And secondly, you have to cut your expenses. You have to reduce what? Your expenses. So this issue of dependence relationship and all those ones, you have to reduce it. As MD of TCN, I can tell you I have only 3 children. My last child was 14 years, so which means I have no intention of doing more. So for you to be able to achieve results in the past in the public sector, you have to cut your expenses and also be focused. And I can clearly tell you, you can move forward. I also advise that we should, as an organization, as members, we should also embark on things that make us sustainable. In 2014, Mazi was the one that handed over the trophy to me as the winner of jogging exercise. In 2000, can you go to that last slide, last year? Look at it, go to that back. Mazi was the one that gave me the trophy. You can see, 2014. He represented the president and he gave me the trophy as the winner of the jogging exercise. I won gold. If you look at by the side, you will see that today, 10th of September, I did 12 kilometers at the rate of 4 minutes, 50 seconds. 4 minutes what? 50 seconds. That is my strategy. If you have done 10 kilometers of jogging in a day, you are twice a person, and you can face anybody, whoever the person is. And that is my strategy. Thank you very much.
Is the fact that being a chartered accountant only lays a foundation for you. You are not restricted, you are not conscripted to just that narrow area of being a chartered accountant. The certificate prepares you for so many things in life. All is left for you is to identify where you will use this profession, the knowledge and so on, to advance whatever area you want to go to. Mohammed, congratulations. If you believe in that, turn to the person on your right and say, I'm proud to be a chartered accountant. Say that again. Thank you very much. After this, Mr. President, you will specifically shake his hand because the whole idea of power in Nigeria has been kept in a cupboard that none of us understands. Fortunately, the production is done at the generation. The one that comes to your house is done by the Gencos, or Discos rather, but somebody has to carry it, the trailer that carries it from the generation to the distribution is called transmission, and that's why he comes in. So understanding within that concept, what I think we should look at is we are now beginning to understand this very, very important aspect of economic development called power. We are going to have a discussant, and the discussant will lead, then the rest of us will come and ask specific questions or express our own opinion very shortly. We'll try to give as many people an opportunity as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to understand here is that you don't need to understand all the technical details about spinning reserve, SCADA, and so on. What you want is power. Is that not true? Your questions must be directed at that. We have left him to be an expert in SCADA and so on. Our own expertise is to have what? Thank you very much. On that note, I will invite my very good friend, Dr. Babagana Wakalmani, who is representing the governor, who also is Professor Babagana Umara Zulum. He is the chief of staff, and he will either speak from there. Okay, he's already 1,550. Please come on.
Thank you, sir. President ICAN, other executive members, let me stand by the existing protocol late. Now, first of all, let me convey the apologies of my governor, who is so enthused to be present because of the theme of the conference. Because since we came in, the main preoccupation has been on programs on recovery, stabilization, and rebuilding of the Bornoan society after the devastation by insecurity. So we were looking forward to getting the communique so that we will build into our program that will help us rebuild our society. Now, it has been a very remarkable comment or paper, even though focused primarily on the power sector. But he has been able to bring out clearly the nexus between security and development. Without security, there won't be any development. And for us in Borno, this is crystal clear. Now, since the insurgency, about 75% of our development infrastructure has been destroyed. And infrastructure, not necessarily in terms of power supply, but schools, roads, health clinics, everything has been destroyed. We are like starting afresh. So when we see, and the danger is, the main preoccupation for us now, unfortunately, is focusing on just making provisions for basic needs, food, water, and temporary shelter. So the whole expenditure of government has been giving food, water, and temporary shelter. So there is no question of even building infrastructures for development. I'm happy that he has clearly shown that without development there wouldn't be any room for development, and we need security for that matter. Now, secondly, he has tried to bring out the two concepts clearly. But for us, there is more into understanding what security entails. You know, especially in the lecture-based region. You know, the preoccupation, the primary occupation of our people has been agriculture, livestock, and fishing. And the most dangerous thing has been the effect of climate change over the years. Now, this thing is not well understood. The consequences of this have been, over years, a lot of people have been out of jobs. There has been serious social economic crisis within those regions. And unfortunately, the general public has not conceptualized really well what sort of crisis is happening in those parts of the places. Now, in around 2010 onwards, when there was that insurgency, the bulk of the people, about 1/4 of the rural population were displaced. You will see a picture of mass movement of people coming out of those regions. Women, children, while others were being killed. Many thousands of people died. So, when this happened, where do they go? The immediate recourse is to find a safe haven, just leaving Bordeaux towards the south. And the safest safe haven is the Middle Belt. So our people trooped into the Middle Belt, and fortunately the state governments kept them in the IDPs. Note too that over 80% of Nigerian livestock is in the Lake Chad Basin. Over 90% of the pastoralists are in the Lake Chad Basin. When they were pushed out, the sedentary farmers got recourse in the IDPs. So what about the pastoralists and their huts? What happened? Or what is happening? They were forced out and nowhere to go. And the immediate place of call will be the Middle Belt states. The Middle Belt, already with a higher population, cannot accommodate the pastoralists and their huts. And this time around, it's not a question of moving out temporarily or staying temporarily and moving out of the region. They are there to stay because their original abode is no longer safe. So the narrative changed. Then it was a kind of pastoralist fighting the farmers, killing this, killing that. But contextually, if this thing is understood, the safest way is for us to understand that these guys have been forced out of their original place of abode, that the northeast sub-region cannot be occupied by them, and they have to be done, something must be done. And neither the state government or the federal government planned for them. So see the crisis. Now secondly, I'm happy that when our governor came, we understood that the best thing to address this kind of crisis is first of all to have a good governance. I think this is where ICAN comes in. Good governance entails transparency, accountability, and government being responsive to the needs of its people. And that's what we started doing. Secondly, we had to reinforce the security architecture in those regions. We supported all the military operatives. We also supported or institutionalized the civilian GTF or our hunters so that there will be better coordination among the security operatives to clear those areas. Thirdly, we thought of, because one of the most serious impact of this crisis is the stoppage of all traditional means of livelihood. No farming, no fishing, no cattle rearing, nothing in Borno State. No internal generated revenue, nothing. Whatever we got, we just buy food for the displaced communities. And that was in the practice. So the governor said we cannot continue begging and defending of food aids from organizations. So we started opening up farmlands. And to do that, you have to provide security for the farmers and for the farm. So then third, we thought of ensuring that we generate jobs. If the children are engaged, or if the youth are engaged, they can fend for their livelihood and there will be less a crisis. But unfortunately, all this cannot be gotten without security in place. If you build a school today, tomorrow they will ban it again. So that's a very serious challenge in the state. And I'm thinking our lecturer would bring off what he has for Borno State. I was listening carefully whether he has a plan for us. But I know maybe in future, there must be a serious consideration of what is really happening in the Lake Chad Basin, rather than saying it's just a religious crisis coming off. It's more than that. It has to be understood. We have to place it and understand it in the context of what the political economy of those areas and what is really happening, so that we have a better solution to those problems. Now, the other thing is maybe what he actually needed doing in his presentation is that there are a lot of challenges in the country in terms of having a very good infrastructural development. And this cannot necessarily be understood except if we position it within the context of understanding the Nigerian political economies. Why our development, infrastructural development is failing, in spite of a lot of resources put in. So this cannot just be given textbook solutions. So there must be a better analysis so that we understand the Nigerian nature of the Nigerian economy, then provide a better solutions. So we thank you, and we are looking forward from the organization, especially the communique, that will really make an input to how we will govern our state better and stabilize the lives of our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We were thinking that all we are going to get today so far will be first, corruption issues of how to deal with it. Two, how do we deal with our power situation. Now we have also been educated now about the real issues behind security and how Borno State has fared. And this knowledge thing is a very exciting thing. So I commend the committee and council for giving us what an opportunity of hearing firsthand the real issues confronting our country. On that note, we will be asking for questions. Let me make it clear. We are not coming here to give us any lecture. All of us suffer from power shortage, including me. So, God tell us, ask your questions specifically, or give an advice on what needs to be done to improve the power. That's the bottom line. Please, I hope you understand that. So, on that note, I will invite questions. Good. He will be reading, and he will take the first 5 questions, and he will respond to them. And that's it. I think that's the structure we're going to follow. So all those who are raising up their hands, I'm sorry to put them down. We've already done it electronically. ICAN is improving. Is that not true? Let's clap for ourselves. Now, the first question I will ask, before you are thinking as chairman, I have, very, very important position, a very powerful position. I can ask my question before everybody else. Please, my brother here, you must give us one. What is your prediction of the power situation at the end of this year and at the end of 2020? So those who are putting money together to buy a new generator will know whether they just fix their existing generator or still continue to put the money together. That's my own question. Number 2, fortunately, we have our own brother, Amosu, former governor of Ogun State, now a senator. Mohammed has told us that he was a protector and an advisor. Now he is a senator, And the chartered accountant, the fellow for that matter, we are also charging you with the responsibility of continuing to protect this our brother to do the right thing for Nigeria. Do we agree?
Agree.
Mr. President, I was speaking on your behalf. Am I right? Thank you very much. On that note, questions can start.
The first question is, why has TCN shut down power to substations in Kano for more than 4 days now? That is number one. The second question is, the recent input between TCN and KETCO, why is it always the customers that suffer, and what is the way forward? Those are the two questions we have now.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me start with some of the proposals that have been raised by the representative of Governor of Borno State. First of all, I want to clearly state to you that I'm also from Borno State. I'm from Bino. Therefore, I know clearly the political dynamics and the problem in the Northeast. I can also clearly tell you there are two reasons why the Northeast is what it is now. If you look at in the 80s and in the 70s, look at the development indices and indicators. Northeast is not different from North Central. In fact, in some cases, Northeast is better than North Central. And the case of Boko Haram that we have now, history has shown that we have this kind of Boko Haram before. Is that not, Doctor? Chief of Staff, we have Rabi now, Rabi. Rabi was similar to Boko Haram now, which was historical in the past. Now, let me tell you why I said there are only two reasons that contributed to that. I know Professor Zulum very well. I knew him when he was doing NYC in Katsina. That time, I was the accountant of Nepal in Funtua when he was doing his NYC. I know he has the capacity to change things. But I can tell you clearly, part of the problem why Northeast is backward is two. One is access to electricity, and secondly is lack of good leadership in the Northeast. As we speak with you, the line that supplies the entire Northeast is the single-sided line that runs from Jos to Gombe. Anytime that line is out, the whole of Northeast, 6 states are without electricity. 6 days without electricity. In November last year, we had a case where that line developed a problem, and the entire 6 days have no electricity for 3 days. The only place in the Northeast that had electricity was Azare and Gashua that gets supplied from Kano. All the other places are in darkness. I also want to tell you that some of the locations in the Northeast are more than 1,000 kilometers from the nearest generation station. What am I trying to say? Some of the places like Manguno, Mate, Dikwa, they are more than 1,000 kilometers from nearest generation station. And there is no infrastructure in the Northeast. The only two substations we have in Borno are 3 substations we have in Borno is one in Dambo, the one in Biu, and one in Maiduguri. Now, the one in Maiduguri that is distributed to places like Manguno, Damasak, and the rest, some of them run more than 300 kilometers of 33 kV line. A 300 kilometers of 33 kV line, there is no way the power at the end of it will be anything useful. That is a fact. But I also clearly tell you, Senator can confirm, he told me several times, isn't it? As the MP of TCN, there is no region in the north in Nigeria that at least 4 governors have not visited me in the last 1 year. The north is the only governor that came to look for power is only Gombe, and he came 2 weeks ago. That's what I want to tell you. But did we stop there? No. That is the reason why we forcefully took over Damaturu and completed it. And provided 330 kV substation in Damaturu and also 330 kV substation in Maiduguri. Now, before now, the whole of Northeast has only 2 330 kV substations. We completed 2. That means what? We put 100% of the existing capacity in the Northeast. And we have not stopped there. We have structured a project that will put 330 kV in Manguno and substation in Manguno, Mate, Dikwa, Bama, Goza, Chibok, Rupa. Mubi, Gulag, and all those places, we are putting power in those places, and it's being financed by the African Development Bank. Because we know, if we don't take economic activity to those people, there is no way we will have peace. Now, the issue of production of power. Sir, we started enforcing the market rule in June. And when we were enforcing the market rule, even the regulator was thinking that what we are doing is not sustainable. But we have proved that the market rule enforcement is sustainable. Now, what is the enforcement of market rule? It means a disco that is not performing should be kicked out. Because you cannot run a business that if you don't perform, you still survive. A business that is not performing is supposed to die. Is that not so? But if a business is not performing and is surviving, what is happening? It means it's living on people, especially infrastructure that is living on public fund. So the market rule has clearly shown, sir, that we can kill a disco that is not performing. Clearly. Because the market rule was very clear. We know about the market rule. We refuse to enforce it. Because we need to show some level of performance before we can enforce it. When we show some level of performance, we decided to enforce the market rule. And clearly, what has happened in the last 3 years has shown that the market rule is a formidable document. Because even those that went to court, they came out of court because they were wrong. And everybody has paid 100%. So what should we do? What we should do is that the regulator should continue. And yesterday we had a meeting in Lagos, and I think the regulator will take it up. And from there, we will continue to have expansion in the distribution network, which means those distribution, either government capitalize them or it does not capitalize them, they have to look for money to perform. If they don't perform, it means that there will be problem. Now, somebody has a question on so I can see that maybe in the next 1 year we'll see a window of where we are going. Because clearly, as we speak with you now, we have a generation capacity of over 7,000 megawatts. That's between 7,000 and 8,000. The transmission capacity when we simulated as of December last year was 8,100. Have we solved the problem of transmission? No. But we have a sustainable way of solving the problem. Now, the problem where we cannot take more power is because there is no distribution infrastructure to take the power. And clearly, sir, I want to tell you, sir, clearly, sir, if you look at as we speak with you, as the manager of the grid, we don't give connection agreement to people who want to generate electricity. We don't give them. There are many people that want to generate electricity, and we don't give them connection agreement. Why? Because when we connect them and the distribution doesn't peak, it means we are increasing the material liability of the country. Because as at now, MBA is guaranteeing the generation. So money that are made for schools, for roads will not be given to MBA to guarantee power that we are not taking. And that is the reason why we are not there. So generation clearly not our problem. Our problem is that we need to fix the distribution network. Now the issue of Kano become the rascal of all of them. But we are dealt with them the way it is supposed to be. Because it's not Kano we start suspending under the market rule. We start suspending Ikeja, Iko, and Inu. And the same person that was suspended those people, and they have to fix what is wrong with why we suspended them. The first suspension we did was that most of them provided inadequate security. So we asked them, those security has expired, they have to bring it. Because the security is that when we transport electricity for you and you don't pay, we go to the security and we take our money. That's what it means. All of them follow the agreement, including Inugu, where we disconnected part of their franchise. They follow and they do what they're supposed to do. The next round of people we suspended is Port Harcourt and Kano. Port Harcourt did what they were supposed to do, but Kano refused. But as I can tell you, they have come and they have fulfilled all they are supposed to do. They have paid all the money and they have done the right thing. So as we speak with you, even the court that they went, they have withdrawn from the court. So somebody say that we stopped Kano. No. When we suspend the disco, we apply disconnection because we want to put pressure on them to do what they're supposed to do. What we do is that we disconnect feeders that feed their office. So what we did in Kano, we disconnected 2 feeders. And those 2 feeders are out of 54 feeders that are in Kano franchise. Now those 2 feeders are in Daagundi. In fact, even those 2 feeders, when we discovered that Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital was involved, we restored supply to Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, which means it was only one that was then later disconnected. But what Kano did to blackmail TCN, they decided to disconnect everybody other people. And we went to NAC, and NAC did investigation and confirmed that we have no fault. We have no fault. So we did not disconnect the whole of Kano, only 2 feeders, and later only one. It is Kano Disco at that time that decided to disconnect other people to blackmail TCN, to show to the whole world that it was TCN that was refusing to give us supply. So I think I've answered those questions. Thank you.
Now we shall have the last set of questions which were sent in electronically here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a question from Ayo Ajayi. Please explain the concept of prestige customers. Where do discos get power? Where do discos get power? That's the first one. The second one is the electric meter available for free or is it being sold? If it is sold, why not reduce the price and quality service so as to broaden the economic generation base?
I'll overrule that question. That's a disco question.
Okay. Who is responsible for the issuance of prepaid meters to customers in the power sector? I also think it's a disco question. Mr. Chairman.
He has agreed to take it.
Okay. Okay, this one. Why will the only power station in Alochi, Aba, Abia State that should serve the southeast not be fixed except from World Bank funding? And lastly, power is very important in operating small businesses. What other sources can entrepreneurs explore to generate power other than generator, which is costly to operate? This one is from Precious. Thank you.
Right, and finally, I will want 1 or 2 sentences at the end of this whole thing from Senator Amosu before we go, because he's somebody we all admire and appreciate, and we're going to hand over the responsibility of making TCN his responsibility in the Senate. Do we agree? All right, so thank you very much.
One of the questions is what is the prestige customer? There is no way to call prestige customer. We have what they call eligible customer. It's not a prestige customer. Eligible customer are those that based on the declaration of the Minister of Power, former Minister of Power, that declare eligible customer consistent with the Power Sector Reform Act in 2017. Anybody who consumes 2 megawatt and above can actually request to be connected directly to the grid. And that's what we call eligible customer, which means those customers can be connected not through the discos, but they can be connected through the grid. As of now, we have about 8 of these kind of customers that are connected. We have about 5 that we are processing. I've told you about Igbo Atlantic is going to be an eligible customer to be connected to the grid. So these are, it's not a prestige customer, but eligible customer. And actually, because those customers are getting directly to the grid and they are caught, the distribution network is cut off from them, they don't pay distribution costs. So those customers will get cheaper electricity than those that pass through the distribution network. Now, the other question is that where does the discos get power? Discos get power from the grids, and they have signed agreement with MBET to guarantee the generation that comes from the generators. So it's actually MBET that the discos are owing in respect of power generation. What TCN collects from the discos is the service providers, which is the payment for transmission, the payment for NAC, for Nigeria Regulatory Authority, and payment for MBET. These are the only ones that we collect, but all payments that are supposed to be made by discos are made to MBET for generation. So that's how it is. But a disco is free to generate its own electricity and put in its franchise. The Act allows the disco to do that. It doesn't stop them. Now, who is responsible for providing meters? The discos are responsible for providing meters. Whether they are going to sell it outright or bill it inside their billing, it is their duty. Because the discos are supposed to, when I told you that what we did in 2012 is like a fraud. I told you that you are supposed to determine the aggregate technical and commercial losses before you sold the distribution. But I said that we didn't determine and we sold it. And when we sold it to UG Mohammed and Co., we allowed them to go and determine the aggregate technical and commercial loss, which they did, which was different from what we put it up when we were selling. But you know, a performance contract was signed between BPE and the discos. And the performance contract is that they are supposed to reduce the aggregate technical and commercial loss in 5 years. You cannot reduce the aggregate technical and commercial loss if you don't provide meter, because the commercial loss is meter. The technical loss is the wires and the transformers. So it is the responsibility of discos to provide meters. And part of the problem we have actually is that discos have elected not to provide meters. If you ask them, if you look at Abuja, for example, you will see that most of the places that don't have meters are places where the poor people live. You go to Pape, Mararaba, and all those places. Where distinguished senator is staying, and myself, I'm sure, we all have meters. So what do we do? Those places that don't have meter, we give them 2 hours of supply or 3 hours, and we ask them to pay what? They pay fixed charge, which means they pay 100% of 2 hours. So that's what we're doing. So if you are talking about cost of electricity, actually, I can clearly tell you, the poor pay more than the rich. Because the rich at the end is they don't have meters in their house. The poor people who are living in Pape and all those ones, they are the ones that pay on fixed charges. And that is why we agree with NAC. NAC decided to come with meter asset provider, forcing the disco to provide meters. They've started implementation recently. We believe that once they implement that, this gaming will stop. Now the issue of also allergy. Allergy on its line is actually the line that we have the highest number of instability on the grid now. Meaning more than 30% of the line instability we have on the grid come from that line. But the line was awarded under NIPP several days ago, and we evaluated and we discovered that that line will not be realized. So it's either we fold our arms and watch, or we look for money just like we are looking for money to fund other places. And that's why that project is being funded under the African Development Bank. And the procurement of that are going very well. What are the sources of generation power? I think I've stated it. The current generation is from the grid, which is being guaranteed by the embed. Embed is not guaranteeing transmission, they are guaranteeing only the generators. But the point is that what we are guaranteeing now as a nation, we don't take all of them on the grid because we have a poor distribution network that cannot take more power. Thank you.
On that note, I invite Senator Amoso to quickly say a word or two to us.
Thank you. Mr. President of our great institute, the Vice President, the first and second, all the members of the council, let me thank in a special way the chairman of the 49th annual meeting, Madam Sigusine, and all the other members, our past presidents. Thank you as always, thank you for keeping the flag flying. There are many of you here, so thank you. Tomorrow I will be presenting a paper, and I'm sure that I will have the opportunity to talk to all of us. But some of the questions that I want to ask Dr. Mohammed, he answered them. The first one is, I'm saying that we should develop maybe a way that we have this handshake that will be beneficial to all of us. In the final analysis, all we wanted is power. So I'm sure that, yes, you've mentioned it, there's no point in going ahead and saying we are generating more. When we generate and you transmit and we cannot distribute, then the end product is not achieved. So please find a way such that we have this handshake that will be beneficial to all of us and we begin to have those parts. The second one is what you've mentioned again. I know that we should at least protect the masses. I'm not saying the rich should just be, I don't know, maybe favored, no. But I believe that we should at least take from those that have and support the have-not. To that extent, I will want to say again that do all that you can, that all these are our rural areas where they have light, they must have meter. Because they just have this estimated bill. Some of them, they don't get the light and they pay, on a monthly basis. So much so that you will see them reacting at some instances. So those are my two questions, and I'm sure that you have answered them. But let me just say this to all of us. Congratulations to all of us accountants. I want to say that tomorrow I'll be addressing us just like what I said, but I want to say something, and that is where, as accountants, we cannot be anonymous. We cannot. So we should be seen, and I believe that we should talk more, and we should be loud in whatever we say. Because for Nigeria to develop, and I like the theme of this year, if we are going to develop our nation, of course, accountants cannot be outsiders. We must be part of it. And we cannot be quarantined. And I'm happy that the chairman, let me salute you, the indomitable chairman, ever cerebral, ever ready. Thank you. Even while I was serving as governor, of course, he read that what I call invaluable support, and so many of our elders that are here almost showed that we all stood to do our bit. So thank you, and thank you, my brother from Bonn, great my brother governor for me, and of course to my brother Dr. Mohammed. Thank you. If you listen to him, as an accountant cannot be quarantined. We cannot. And I've seen some faces, those that are invited outside Nigeria. Thank you, all of you are warmly welcome. We cannot be quarantined. No, we can't say because I'm an accountant, all I can do is just maybe my turf. No, the kind of training that we have is such that we can excel anywhere. I am not an engineer. I did so well. People say it. I build roads, build bridges, do a lot of things. Look at him in Look at what he did in the area of agriculture. So when you say things like that, of course, it emboldens us that there's no human endeavor that we cannot practice. We can't do well. And please, when we sit back and say, no, I don't want to get involved, then you will see people that are not informed. They will not do us. They will create those policies for us. And you cannot give what you don't have. So it is those of us that are professionals, that are educated like this. Please, professionals should get involved in politics. We cannot sit at Kimbo and be complaining. When people like you and me, professionals, are not getting involved, then you leave the field for those that doesn't have the wherewithal to do anything for us. So tomorrow will be a day that we will be able to talk. I will be able to give my paper and say one or two things. So once again, thank you to all of us, the accountant, the future of Nigeria. Thank you. Congratulations on this first life.
Thank you very much, Senator. Quickly, we have Mr. President. We are here because of you. You are establishing partnership now. Partnership now. One with EFCC. Actual partnership, not talk and go. Number two, you are establishing partnership with ICAN in the process with the GENCOs and the DISCOs through Dr. Mohammed here. Number three, you cannot bring the Borno State governor here just for him to talk and go. You will have to promise that during your term as president, you will visit Borno and discuss with the government on what needs to be done and how ICAN can be strengthened. As at now, Mr. President, those are the three this panel is requesting you to do. Do you accept that? God bless you, my sister. Thank you. On that note, I think it's my pleasure to bring this session to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate them one more time. Thank you. The panel might remain seated. Let me invite the President and the Vice President to please
Okay, the President will make the presentation.
VP, Vice we have opened this bag.
It's the same thing inside.
It's the same thing inside. So hold this. We make this presentation on behalf of the Institute, and we thank you for finding time to come. And this way we invite you to come. And I promise we will come to promise them. Thank you. This is for you. You have done so well. You have been lucky about the power transmission going on in Nigeria. We congratulate you for the effort you are making, and you will succeed. Thank you very much. And yes, we promise you will partner with you here. We will visit you subsequently. Thank you. And we have one bag for you. That's the same thing inside.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The first Deputy Vice President will make the presentation too.
On the 55th President, members of this, I am delighted to present this as a token of our appreciation for the effort you have given us this morning. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
I'm lucky the lady that's presenting my own.